We're good to go.
Awesome.
So cool. Well, Margaux, thanks so much for being here. And it's great to see you again. It sounds like you're up to a lot. I see your wine company. I see you at a bunch of rogue events. I see you doing all kinds of stuff. So what have you been up to?
Everything.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. But yeah, I want to say that lots going on. I have the wine company. I'm running my wine company. I'm working on my fitness app. So I launched that back end of December, beginning of January of 2022. So I've been spending a lot of time on that. And then, doing challenges with people, helping people with the health and fitness realm. Got to do the competition, the Legends competition in Austin with Rogue, which is amazing, phenomenal experience. Wasn't able to do it in 2020 because everything got shut down and pushed back. So to be able to be on the competition floor with people that I've competed with over the years was just a very memorable experience, we'll say. So a little bit of fitness, a little bit of wine, a little bit of everything else. Not as much golfing, unfortunately. My time has been spread thin, but I definitely will get out there soon, hopefully, and hit some balls.
Nice. So I keep seeing those challenges online. What's the current one that you're doing? And first of all, let me just say, I love the idea of getting people in a fun way committed to a program like that, where they're sharing it. They're like, people kind of hold them accountable, but it's in a fun way. It's not like you've got to do this.
Yeah. I always keep it fun. I started them, I want to say it was end of 2018. So it's been, almost over 3 years now, 4 years. It'll be 4 years end of this year. And the idea was just to get people to move and be active and have something fun. So this one, I kind of incorporated a little bit of core, a little bit of leg work. I think a lot of people maybe don't have the option or the access to go to the gym. And especially in 2020 when, people couldn't really go anywhere, the idea behind it was just to get people to move, be active. A little bit of movement is important, especially if you don't have any movement. If you sit all day at work or you work from home and you're glued to a computer or glued to your laptop, I think it's very important to take some time out of the day. And so it's just a fun thing that I've created, and it's stuck. And there's one girl, she's been crushing it ever since I started. And I think it's been a little over 3.5 years that she's been doing them. She made a post the other day on Instagram. And so for me, it's just a way to give back to the community. And just, again, create something fun that pulls us together around movement, whether it's scaling the movements or, doing half the reps or half the time. It's just doing something fun for people. And it's really cool to see people to get after it, because I think health and fitness, or just movement period can be so therapeutic in more ways than one, especially in the mindset or the mental aspect that we don't necessarily see firsthand. But I think for a lot of people, it's therapy in a way. And so I've hoped that it's been hopefully a positive outlook or a positive contribution to people's lives.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it still will be going forward. That's one thing, the mental component of exercise and being active, that it's hard for me to convey it. And I'd love to hear how you do it, because like, if one of my friends is maybe, going through some depression or whatever it is, and I tell them to go work out, they're like, oh, you meathead, the gym is not the solution to everything. And I try to say, I'm not trying to say it's the solution to everything, but it will help you. Your mind is part of your body. When you're being more active, when you're using it, you're just going to feel better.
100%. And I think for a lot of people, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of layers to it. I was speaking to a friend she does a lot of kind of psychology training, and she says, if people are stressed or they are in a very high stress environment, whether that's home, that's work, they're going through, business issues, legal issues, your body starts to be stressed or starts to accumulate this environment where working out doesn't seem like a priority. And I can definitely attest to that when I've been stressed or if I'm trying to manage things. Workout at the top of the list usually, then it falls to the bottom. But even if it's going out for a walk or going out for a hike or, riding your bike, just leisurely riding your bike out on a bike trail can be so therapeutic for the body and the mind. And it can be very hard, especially if you feel stressed or you are depressed or you are going through something struggle, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship. And so I can see where the desire to put energy to yourself is not necessarily like at the top of the pyramid, but it's so helpful. And I've had people tell me like, man, like I just went out for a walk and I feel so much better. Or you got me moving again. And I'm so thankful for that, because I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's something that mental health has been brought to the table a little bit more over the past couple of years. And I think we've seen a lot more of it because of the pandemic and because of the shutdown, where so many kids, specifically kids, were not able to be around friends or not able to be in an environment where they thrive, or maybe they are forced, whether they like to be around people or not, but being around humans and that human interaction was important. And I think when we didn't have that, people started to struggle. Some are more comfortable talking about it, some are not. And so it's hopefully encouraging others like, hey, like if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, that's okay. Maybe write in a journal, or talk to yourself when you're out on a walk, but just getting outside is important, and especially vitamin D, getting your body to get into some sunlight. The fresh air can be so refreshing. And I think it also allows us to be more intuitive and allow us to be outside in nature. And I think if you look about, years and years and years ago, where we spent most of our time, it was outdoors. It wasn't indoors under, artificial lights. So it's tough to kind of pull ourselves out of the element, but for those that are out there that are maybe struggling with that, like going for a walk can be the first step in one direction to help you.
Yeah. And I've never heard somebody work out or go for a walk, any kind of activity, and then afterwards say, oh, well, I feel worse now.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes. It's always the opposite.
Exactly.
So, excuse me for a second. I want to tell you real quick about my favorite training aid and a sponsor of the podcast, the Lag Shot. It's designed with what they call lag flex technology that'll help you to create and maintain more lag in your swing, which will give you better consistency and more speed, which we all want, right? But my favorite part is that you can go out and actually hit balls with it. It's a real club. They make a driver, a 7-iron, and a wedge. So you can incorporate it into your practice sessions to ingrain the better technique that it's teaching you. Once you try it, you'll see why I love it. Go to lagshotgolf.com/crush or click the link in the description below to get 15% off. lagshotgolf.com/crush. Speaking of the artificial light and the different stuff that, now we have in our lives every day, what do you do? Because you're very active on social media and all kinds of things. How do you keep that balance of, having like mental health and your proper normal life, and then also being really there on social media?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a struggle. We'll say sometimes I feel like I spend a lot more time on my phone or computer than I want, but it's tough because I'm engaging with people and I'm responding to emails or messages so I can connect people and help people that way. But for myself, it's like going to the gym and doing classes are huge because I get to be around other people, physically be around them. And for me, that's been huge because that allows me to, sweat, move, challenge myself. We can have our fun little competitions in class. But for me, it's a commitment to myself to say, hey, like I'm going to this class in the morning or this afternoon, or I'm meeting a friend to go do that. And then I have a golden retriever dog, and so she likes to be outdoors all the time. And so she's a good reminder for myself to go outside, because I know once I go walking, I'm like, I feel so good. I feel like I connect with nature pretty well growing up in Montana, wanting to be outdoors and, seeing the mountains and the clouds and the sky and all that. So it's a good reminder to say, hey, like disconnect for a little bit. Like even if I'm listening to music or maybe a podcast, that's fine, but don't access my phone, and kind of close that door and put it to the side so I can, have a half an hour or an hour outside. And for me, it's good because it gives me clarity. It's also a relaxation. But also I found journaling, creating some time in the morning, even if it's not every day, maybe it's like once a week, but I can sit down. I usually find my mornings are a little more, or we'll say less hectic, less time constraints, or I'm not trying to rush to do something or try to get things done within a certain time frame. So my mornings are where I'll have some coffee and journal a little bit. And it could be thoughts, it could be emotions, it could be random poems that I like to write. I think just writing and physically getting words and thoughts out on paper can be good. Doing it on your phone can be great, but it also could be a distraction if you have notifications that pop up. So I always encourage people. And when I do, fun challenges or I do stuff with my Facebook group, I say, hey, get a journal, or if I give giveaways, I'll always try to provide a journal because that is a great outlet for a lot of people where we disconnect from some sort of electronic device and actually have that pen and paper. And for me, I noticed I haven't been writing as much. My handwriting looks a lot worse than last time. It's a good reminder to practice our handwriting skills too.
Yeah, it is. It is that you bring up an interesting point of writing on paper and actually doing that instead of on your phone. I've seen some really kind of creepy studies about screen time and like looking at that with your eyes. So if your kind of meditation or quiet time is doing something on your phone, it probably would be good to consider, like you say, go to actual pen and paper or reading an actual book instead of an ebook. And, I don't really want to believe some of the things I see about how, it can be really unhealthy for you to be looking at a screen so often. But 100%. I guess that's one of the challenges of our world right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've never gotten to the ebooks. I think the physical, having a book in my hand and turning the pages and feeling the paper has always been something where I connect with it too. And I think for some people it might be advantageous to do that, but we don't have a lot of long-term studies of how long, does the light affect our brain, our eyes, our mechanics. I've heard of some studies saying, like how we hold our phones like this are changing our thumb mechanics or our thumb position or our muscles, because we're using so much more of our thumbs or our forearms. Like, how does that affect? And I know for myself, like, oh man, my thumbs and forearms are kind of tight. Like maybe I'm either death gripping my clubs or I'm spending too much time on my phone. But finding ways to disconnect from our phone, whether that, pen and paper, I try to wear, not all the time, but I'll try to wear like my blue light glasses when I'm on my computer for hours on end, because our bodies aren't designed for that. We don't have the studies or the history of what effects that'll have on us in, 10, 20, 30 years.
That's right. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about the long-term things.
And I don't get all negative, but the biggest thing is awareness. Like, bring awareness to your body. How does it serve you? How does it serve your body, your head, your mind? And just like at least acknowledge it. And then you can make the decision as an individual to change things or not. Yeah.
You're not doing yourself any favors by just being blind to a potential problem. You don't need to be negative about it, but you can bring it up, address it, and then you'll be fine. Or you can figure out a way to be fine. So. Yeah. I would like to think those yellow or blue light blocking, like the yellow tint, I would like to think they do something. I have a pair. I wear them anytime I'm going to look at a screen, like, anytime after the sun goes down roughly.
Nice.
And so hopefully, I don't know, I don't feel a difference, but hopefully it helps.
Hopefully subconsciously there's something like helping. I think most phones now have the capacity or the ability to, I think it's like a certain time you can set it where it's like dimming the light, or it's more of a yellow tone on the, on the phone. So I've enabled that like at 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So at least that gives me kind of, all right, I'm less light emission. Yeah. It's the light that's coming out that hopefully affects me less. But
on my older phone, I had that setting turned like up to the max. And then I would find myself at night, like holding it real close and trying to squint because I couldn't read it that well. And I was like, this is stupid. It's counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're looking at your phone, like just trying to like zone them out even more. It probably doesn't help either. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned something cool about working out together and being in a class with other people and around other people. And I know sometimes if people are, maybe more introverted or something like that, they wouldn't actively go and seek out a group environment or a training partner or something. But I think it's massively advantageous to have somebody, at least one person, like a training partner that you're with and around, and you're going through it together. And it not only makes it more fun, you push each other more, but then there's that camaraderie at the end where you really feel more connected to the person.
I 100% agree. I've always been drawn to the kind of group classes. And I think that's what drew me in first when I first found CrossFit, was the camaraderie and the community of everyone in the classes where, you're pushing yourself and you're trying to go faster or get more reps than the other person. But at the same time, it's you versus, at the end of the day, it's you versus yourself. But it's that energy you get to share with people at the end. You're accomplished. Like, you did your work, that person did that work. You can high five and fist bump and just celebrate your work. And I think support systems are huge, whether it's 1 people or 10 people. And I love the class environment because that's what I feel like I can get out of it. I've done tons of training over the years by myself. It's not that I can't do it, but I think I've done it for so long that I actually enjoy the group class setting more. And I love meeting new people. So when I travel, if I can drop into a new gym, whether that's CrossFit or any other type of classes or any type of a gym that has group classes, for me, I'm all about meeting people because, there's some people out there that we could possibly connect with or hear their stories or learn from them or meet them. And it's funny because the places I've been, I've met people that are like, oh, I know so-and-so. And it's like this, rule of 3, where by the third person, the person that knows the person. It's crazy. But again, I love the group class setting.
Yeah, that's so, because you brought it up, let's hear about, I don't know your story of how you learned about CrossFit, what you were doing before that. I know I've seen you at the games a ton of times, but how did you get into it initially?
So I've always been involved in like health and fitness. I really loved personal training. And I found that I started personal training in 2009, end of 2008, early 2009, excuse me. And I just loved being able to help people. And I had heard about it in 2010. Some friends had talked to me about it, but I was kind of pivoting my training, trying to go into like, half marathons, obstacle races, Tough Mudders. When I was kind of interested in getting back into martial arts, I did Taekwondo when I was little. And so I wanted to get back and do some sort of martial arts training more for kind of just awareness. And if I had to be in a place where I needed protection, I could be able to protect myself, and just knowing how to get in and out of situations if it ever happened. And so that was kind of the draw to martial arts. And so I did, Brazilian, not BJJ, but I did some classes with a friend of mine that was kind of BJJ style, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and grappling a little bit. And I really liked that. And at that time, a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm going to check out this CrossFit gym. You should try it. And I was like, all right, well, I've heard about it. Some friends have told me about it. I'll go check it out. And this was early 2011. I want to say like February or March. And I tried out a class, like the elements class, and I absolutely loved it. I love the challenge. I love that it was so hard. I'd never done anything like this before. I think actually my first class was a class I just dropped in on, and we had burpees and snatches. And back then there wasn't really a 35-pound bar, it was just a 45-pound bar, which they call it the guy's bar, where it's thicker. But I have one short thumb. So my right hand, my thumb's a little shorter. So doing the hook grip was really hard on my right arm or my right hand. So I was trying to do it. I was like, man, this is so hard. But I absolutely fell in love with it. And that was my first class. And I was like, again, I love the community. I loved how everyone was so supportive and encouraging, like finish and go and push yourself. But I also love like the innate desire where like I was trying to be the best version of myself. I was trying to push myself to go faster, do more, but also learn new movements. And that was kind of the first time I ever really touched a barbell and doing elements with that. So it was a completely new arena. And I fell into kind of the term, the CrossFit Kool-Aid drinking girl.
Yeah.
I was like super obsessed with it. All you talk about is CrossFit, kind of like Fight Club. You don't talk about it, but all you talk about it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved it. And I kind of threw myself head in and decided to do my mobility certificate or class certificate probably a month in. And then I got my level 1 certificate probably 4 months in. What
kind of training were you doing before that? You said you were training.
Yeah. So I was
like personal training.
So I was doing personal training. I was training other clients.
Just like NASM or like.
Yeah. NASM. Okay. So I love that style. I love that education because it taught me more about the musculature of the body. Yep. I didn't go to school for that. So for me, it was a completely different field, but I loved it because understanding how our body works and operates is really important. And I feel like even now with the technology we have, we still don't understand our body. Yeah. And there's certain things we don't have answers for, as much tests that we do or scans or whatever. So for me, it was really insightful. I really liked that. So that kind of started that path in terms of personal training. And then I did TRX training. So I did dabble a little bit of different platforms or different training methodologies. And then when I found CrossFit, I loved the methodology. I loved the functionality of it, taking it from the gym, the training that you do, and, how you apply that outside. And a lot of that has prepared me for, the business that I have, harvesting grapes and doing the wine and moving cases, but also, going out in the mountains and hiking with like a 60-pound pack. Like it's transferred a lot to, climbing hills. I mean, large hills, we'll say, but that functionality was huge. And so I think that's what I really enjoyed, and just throwing myself in there. And I think after that personal training, the level 1 certificate, I was like, all right, I know I want to continue to give back. And I think a lot of that giving back or helping people stem from, feeling that maybe I couldn't help my sister because she passed away in 2008. And I think there was a void of not helping her and not saving her, even though I can't control that. That's those controllables I can't control. I can't control, getting in an accident and preventing that. But I think that innate feeling inside me of wanting to help others really propelled me into the health and fitness industry, where I wanted to help and train others, even if it's a completely different genre, we'll say, saving someone's life versus, saving their life in the gym. But I think that does save people's lives, because a lot of people now are getting to the point where they're not sure what to do. And, the gym or physical activity moves them and changes their life. And so that was a big pivot point. And then, training people and then seeing the competition side of it, I was like, wow, I want to push myself. I want to challenge myself. I want to see if I'm capable of these women. And volunteering at the SoCal regionals in 2011, and then the games following that year, seeing the women and men on that competition floor and what they're capable of, I was like, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. Like, I want to see what I'm capable of. And that's, back then it was kind of like, oh, okay, like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs maybe. But I was like, well, if I don't give it a shot and I don't put everything into that basket, and I don't at least try, I'll never know. And if I try and I don't get there, fine, at least I gave it everything I got. And that kind of started my journey with the training within the CrossFit world, but then also competition within the CrossFit world.
Wow. So
that's a lot at once.
What was the process in that's great. In 2011 then, and 12 and 13, were they still doing like regionals and all of that? Had they started the Open at that point?
Yeah. So 2011 was the first year of the Open. There was lots of kinks that they were kind of working out, but 2011 was the first year they took top 60 to the regionals. Back then there was a lot more we'll say like regionals, like sections. There was a NorCal, a SoCal, and then different areas throughout the country. So then that was the same procedure open to regionals from 2011 to 2018. So 2018, they cut down the numbers a little bit from the open to the regionals. In 2014 was the last, like, we'll say like split regionals. There's lots of different sections. In 2015, they condensed or combined some of the regionals or some of the areas. So there was maybe more states in one. California became just not NorCal and SoCal, but one California plus like the West Coast. So Oregon and Washington State. So a couple other California or other regions were in there. And so 2015 to 2018 was when they had like the people would call them like the super regionals, where you had small regions that were paired together. And so that changed a little bit, but they would always take top 5. So there'd be 40 women and 40 men at the games. And I think the most stressful part was regionals, because you have 40 competitors vying or fighting, competing for that top 5 spot.
That was always one of the weird parts. And I respected why they did it for sure. But to me, like when I first learned about the games and how you qualify, like Rich Froning, for example, I think it was probably 2015 was my first year, like, you know, being into it really, well, maybe 14, but he had to qualify every year and he had just won whatever 2 of them. And I was like, wow, the guy who's the best still has to go through the open regionals. And because in golf, it's usually not that way. You get exemptions. Like, thankfully I'm exempt into the World Championship this year. And that's great, you know, but I understand as well, like the philosophy was you have to earn it. You have to show that you haven't just been like slacking and letting your fitness fall, right? You've still got to come out and perform. Yeah.
I want to say in 2011 through maybe even 2010 through 2014, they had that rule. I think maybe 2014 is probably the last year they did it. So 2013 was the last rule. Like if you had won it or if you had qualified before, you got that, like that ticket to the games.
Okay.
So I think Sam Briggs, she had got it. She'd won it in 2013. I want to say Chris Cleverson, she'd won it in 2011. She had that ticket, but I want to say in 2014, they changed some of the rules. You still had to compete and still had to, you know, earn your spot. And that whole premise behind it was like, you know, nothing is just given to you, it's earned. So that's where the kind of the mentality is like, you have to qualify year after year. And when they removed that rule, a lot of people are like, what, this doesn't make sense. But the other people are like, hell yeah, like, let's go, you know, because nothing's guaranteed. So there might be someone like in the backwoods hanging out, you know, vying for that spot, and you won't really know until regionals. And for regionals, it was a place where people could come and showcase, because you see the open scores, you're like, all right, cool. But then that's in your gym, the comfort of your own home or your own gym, wherever you're doing it. Then you get to regionals, you have a lot of other elements you can't necessarily control. Like, oh, I want to do it at 4:00 on a Friday when everyone's around me cheering. It's like, nope, we're going at 11 a.m. and then we're going to go again at 3 p.m. And you're going to do it with these different people in different environments. So I think that's where it was a little different in regionals, even though you had some knowledge or prior time to prepare for regionals. Obviously things have changed since 2018, but that was kind of the layout of it, where people could, you know, they had time to complete some of the workouts beforehand, you had an idea of what it was going to take. And they made a great show of it too. I think I only posted, like actually did all of my workouts and scores for the open, I think 1 year. It could have been 2015 or 14, but I did them on my own at other times. Nice. And not good. I did not do well at all, but it was so fun to watch the reveal of the workout and then see like a couple of the best men and women go through that. And you're like, okay, well, I'll try to keep their pace, or I'll try to, you know, get to that round number or something. And I never would, but I still had a great time. Like with you, like you were saying, the competition, that was something that I think my workouts had been lacking before. Cause when I started working out, I had a great trainer who became a professional bodybuilder. And so like, I knew all about, you know, technique on lifting weights and hypertrophy and stuff like that. But there wasn't that competition component other than just like, oh, lift more weight or whatever. Do more reps.
Yeah. But then when you get into like, okay, well, lift that much weight, but then add in like a couple other movements and do it for time, then it's like, whoa, that's a really fun challenge. And I think like with everybody, the first time they do CrossFit, they're terrible at it. Well, most people, like probably 99% of people, when they try it, they're just terrible at it. And so they're like, wow, that's like a big weakness. I've got to target that. And the cool part about it is when you target getting better at CrossFit, you're targeting everything. Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I think a lot of that transfers, like I said, outside of the gym, like to real life. And I think the element, and I talked to some people the other day about this, there's that intensity piece. And, even in training and even education and coaching, like intensity is relative. Like high intensity for each person is dependent on your fitness level and how, what do you have as a background? Like, did you run cross country? Were you a swimmer? Did you lift weights for weightlifting, whatever it might be? Like, everyone's different. So if you go for something, hey, you have 3 rounds of push-ups, squats, and running, like the intensity for one person is going to be way different than the other person, and their times might be completely different. But that's where it pushes your threshold of like what you're capable of. And our bodies can adapt over time. It takes time, but your body can adapt to new stimuluses. And I think that's what allows your body to change. And you have these amazing transformations where people are, putting the effort, they're challenging their body, and their body's responding like, oh, I didn't have this, or I didn't know how to do this, but now I do. And I think one of the stories I think that kind of always resonates with me, it was just a small moment in time, but it was when I was living in California in 2014. And I was coaching and training at a gym. And this one lady came in, she was kind of curious. I think she was maybe in her late 40s, early 50s. And she's like, I know I just want to get stronger because like my groceries are heavy. Picking up a gallon of milk is heavy. Picking up my grandkids are heavy. I want to be around so I can play with them, but I also can lift my groceries. And I was like, trying not to like cry. I was like, damn, I never would have thought about that because that was never, I was like, I'm strong enough to pick up groceries or pick up little kids or friends' kids. But for her, that was something that was not there, that was not capable. And it's like, it's just something like that where for her, it was just to get stronger to pull around groceries or pull around her grandkids. And I think that's what's so unique and special about it, where everyone has their reason of why or what their purpose is or where their inspiration is. But it's impactful, I think, in any level.
For sure. I had a bunch of clients. I was training for a few years down in South Florida, and a lot of the clients were a little bit older. And so for them, it was like you said, maybe playing with grandkids, or a lot of them were golfers. And so they would want to be able to go and walk around the golf course without their knees hurting or their back hurting, or being able to go and bend over and pick up the golf ball. And as much fun as the competition is, it's equally as like rewarding and exciting to see somebody who then can do those things with their family or their personal activities, their friends. I mean, that's so good to see. And that's one of the things that I loved about CrossFit right away, is that you really can scale it for anybody. And to be honest, I haven't followed CrossFit too closely in the last year or two, but that was one thing that they were pushing hard for a while, is that you could have your grandma come in and you could have, a really fit anybody come in and they can do the same workout, but scaled very differently. But it's the same structure. You're getting the same adaptations, and it's really cool to see that.
No, I agree. And I think one of the commercials that they did was, I want to say it was a lady out in Hawaii, and she was, doing a workout, sitting into a box and, doing ring rows. And if you think of the workout Fran, which is rep scheme 2159 of thrusters and pull-ups, that could be scaled so many different ways. Like you could do, front squats, you could do shoulder overhead. If you can't squat, you could sit to a box. You could do it with a PVC pipe. You could do ring rows. You could do bent over barbell rows. You could do bent over barbell rows with a PVC pipe just to mimic that pull. Pull-ups with a band, depending on what your level is. And I think the beauty of it is that anything can be changed and scalable. And I think going back to like what I said when we first started talking, just movement is therapy, moving and getting blood flow. Like our bodies are designed to move, centuries ago, however you look at it, like as we were cave women and cavemen, like we were outdoors and we moved. Like to get somewhere, you had to walk somewhere. You had to move your body in space to do something. And I think that's what now, if you look at like our lifestyle, we sit a lot. We sit somewhere, inside a room with less light. Like there's a lot of things that come into play, So
yeah, for sure. And it's a weird thing to manage, but I had a bunch of clients down in that Florida location that were maybe afraid of hearing like a word squat or deadlift. They'd be like, oh, I don't deadlift. That sounds scary. But then when you kind of explain like, oh, well, if you're going to tie your shoes, if you're going to pick up your kid, if you're going to whatever, you need to do it. So then
walk to the toilet to go to the bathroom.
That's right. That's right. Getting in and out of a car, eating dinner, whatever it is, there's a million different things that those activities are basically training you to do. And like you said, you can just have them sit down on a box and stand back up. And I mean, that sometimes that's enough to be all they need.
Yeah.
Well, not all they need, but that's like for a squat, that'll take care of a lot.
For sure. And the more you move, like you're going to promote flexibility of the joint. You're going to encourage use of musculature around the entire joint. So as you move more, you'll have more movement. You also have more flexibility, which I think I've noticed as people have gotten older, even myself, the more I sit, the tighter my hips get. Like flexibility and stretching is huge. And I don't think people realize it, not until you get older. You're like, man, I'm limited by, I can't bend over because I can't bend my knees because my back's so tight, my hips are so tight. So it's something that you just, start practicing every single day. And I tell people, hey, like, you brush your teeth every day, just stretch every day. Like, even if it's 5 minutes, like do a little bit of movement every day, go for a 10-minute walk. You don't wait till Saturday, then, brush your teeth for an hour. I mean, I imagine, I hope everyone brushes their teeth, but hey, man, I'm not one to judge.
Yeah.
Same thing. Don't wait till Saturday to like go work out for an hour, or move for an hour. Just a little bit each day can do like amazing wonders.
I'm sure you probably know Kelly Starrett.
Yep.
And all his stuff. I think right now he's The Ready State. I believe that's his most recent book. And that's a great way to live your life, to be ready. Like, why, if you know that you're restricted somewhere, why would you not address that so that you can just move and express yourself like an animal would? I know before that, maybe it was a couple books before, but The Supple Leopard, that was one of the first ones that I got into. That was really cool.
The first course I took after a month of starting CrossFit was the movement mobility certificate course that he offered. I took it down in San Diego and I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. It was mind blowing. I'm like, man, because there's a difference between like muscle flexibility and then like joint mobility or joint flexibility of that joint of being able to have that range of motion. I'm like, man, like mind blowing, but it was incredible. I loved it.
Yeah. So then you went through mobility level 1. Were you on the seminar staff for a while?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. So I did the level 1, then eventually I took the level 2 about 2 years later, right before I got on staff. And then got my level 3 as well. And I was on staff for 5.5 years. I absolutely loved it. Being able to travel around the world, talk to people, meet people, teach the methodologies. And I think for me, the most impactful part was hearing people's stories of their transformations, of their changes that they made for themselves or their community or family members. And it was just a phenomenal experience of being able to hear what they went through. And it's like, man, like that's so cool because health and fitness can change so many people's lives in so many ways. And so to have the opportunity was great. I really was blessed for that.
Yeah. How did that process start? Did you already made it to the games and you're like, hey, I also would like to? Yeah.
So in 2013, after my first year competing, I think it was in Manhattan Beach at like the hotel that everyone was staying at, the host hotel. Dave and Nicole were out there and Alex and I were talking and he's like, go say hi. And I was like, all right. So I went up tonight because I just wanted to say, hey, like I want to say to them, I was like, oh, but I was like, oh, I was kind of nervous. It's Dave, like, I went over to them and I just gave them, a thanks of the opportunity to be able to compete. It was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful. Like I want to come back for more. Obviously got to qualify. But he said, that's, it's awesome to see what you did. If you're interested in seminar staff, reach out, shoot an email. And so I was like, okay. And then like the next day, I like sent him an email and started figuring out the process and went to do my level 2 after that. And then started doing the internship process. And I was super adamant about it. So I knocked it out in, I want to say a couple of weeks. I was very, very adamant about, wanting to make sure that I need to be prepared, execute with everything that I needed to be part of the staff. And of course, I can't control the decision, but I can control the effort and the work that I put in. And I was very diligent. And I believe I did my internships almost back to back within that time frame. And then I was accepted on staff. I want to say it was like early October. So yeah, I was very excited.
I remember seeing, I don't remember their names now, but they would post like traveling over to China to teach courses and all that kind of stuff. And it looked so fun to do that. And you get to just go to all the local boxes and try the food and everything. That must've been a great experience.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I didn't get to travel. I did travel a lot. The times that I did travel internationally, I got to go to Hong Kong and Australia. And that was a really cool experience. I'd never been to Hong Kong and just meeting the owners. They moved here. The owners, I think they had sold the gym since, and then now in the States. And we've actually connected a little bit, trying to meet up if our schedules sync up, which is cool because, getting to travel over there. And I think it was in 2014 and getting to meet them and see the people in the community and the culture. It's just so unique. And to see how, fitness can bring people together, whether, you're in a box or a local gym or, doing it at your garage, doesn't matter. I think just the community pulling people together was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I remember when I would watch you, I'd watch the games every year, and it seemed like as an athlete, you were very well-rounded. And I know CrossFit is supposed to make you well-rounded, but you still have some like specialists, either cardio or, swimming or lifting weight that do well on the heavy days. But it seemed like you were like consistent and good at pretty much every event. Is that like, would you describe yourself as far as an athlete as just like a consistent person or what? Like, how would you?
Yeah, I would say, consistency was huge. If you look at CrossFit, you might have strengths where you're a 10. If you're looking at a level at a 1 out of 10, you'd be a 10. But you kind of, and it's funny, I tell people, like, you kind of want to be at least an 8 or 7 to 9 around those things, because you want to be consistent across the board. And placing is huge. Of course, there's events where like you might do better than others, or you have ones that are not so good. But I would say for the most part, relatively consistent. There would be some weaknesses for sure. Strict handstand pushups or strict deficit handstand pushups were definitely not my jam. We'll say that. These long arms help for deadlifting, but not pushing myself inverted. But it was good because it constantly challenges. And I think Dave, when he was the director of programming and director of the games, he challenges us as athletes. And I think if you're looking at his role in terms of specifically challenging us and specifically looking at the workouts that provided, we had to rise to the occasion. If not, then, we didn't succeed or we didn't get past the test. And a perfect example is 2013 games to 2014 regionals. You had the legless rope climb workout where, I only got like 2.5 rope climbs, and half doesn't really count. So we'll say two rope climbs, legless rope climbs, we'll say. But in 2014, he brought it back as a regional event. 10 legless rope climbs with a run between, and people, we had to make sure we got through that. And we did. A lot of people got through the workout, not everyone, but you were tested to say, hey, this is what the fitness test, you have to rise to that occasion. You have to challenge yourself, get yourself to that capability, because if not, someone else will come. And I believe, I don't know 100% of the workouts now that it's, I think semifinals are coming around the next few weeks, but I think one of the regionals that CrossFit's programming, they have a different way of doing it. I think each place is able to do their own, a CrossFit program too. And one of them is a pullback or a repeat of that 2014 workout, the legless rope climb, the run. So it'll be interesting to see the change of times and how people quickly get through it. So
it's always amazing to see that progress. And if you look back at like the really old games when they were back at the ranch, and the athletes, like the weights they were lifting was nothing compared to what they do now. Or similarly would be the pegboard. I don't remember what year that was introduced, but
2015.
That people had a really hard time with that. And now they're just flying up, right?
Yeah. So that was my first event that I won at the game, the pegboard event. So it was interesting to see because no one anticipated it. And it's funny because, there's a story when I was in El Paso, the gym that I was at, there was a pegboard installed. And I was like, man, I kind of want to try this out, but we're like, no, we got to focus on training. We were more worried about handstand pushups and handstand walking. So when it was released at the games, I was like, go figure. There's a pegboard, and I could have practiced, but I didn't. But I had done a lot of training with the rings, a lot of ice cream makers, which mimic a front planche on the rings. And so I think a lot of that training, being in this position, helped transfer over to the pegboard when it was released in 2015.
But you still was able to, you get a win on a brand new event. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I think that's where I feel like if consistency of who I am as, an athlete, but also like new challenging things, I can relatively feel okay and comfortable challenging myself to do that, to overcome that challenge.
Yeah.
So it was good.
So you mentioned Dave Castro, and that's actually how you and I met. I guess it was maybe toward the end of 2018, maybe, or going into 2019. But I first met him. I was a big fan of CrossFit, and I wanted to see how it could work I was playing tournament golf and doing long drive. And we started talking. I just emailed him randomly and he happened to respond, which was awesome. And I ended up doing my L1 and the kettlebell course, which the kettlebell course was amazing because it was taught by, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Jeff Martone.
Jeff Martone. Yep. Yeah. I saw him this past weekend at Power Monkey Camp. He's super
What a cool dude, man.
He's super rad.
Yeah. And so as a side note, he has really helped my shoulders. I had a little tear in the labrum on the left side, and he was telling me how he used to box and everything and would dislocate his shoulders like every week or something. And so he started doing the arm bar stretches and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of that now, and it's been great.
Awesome. Yeah.
But anyways,
he's huge. He's awesome.
How's he doing now?
He's good. He usually coaches the kettlebell part of the kettlebell, the circuit at Power Monkey Camp, but he wasn't able to make it out for the full time. So his kind of two students he's worked with and coached them and trained them, Zach and AJ, they taught it for the week, but then he kind of came in, I want to say the last couple of days. He's part of like the final days there, but it's super cool. It was great to like connect with him because I've heard his name around. I think I've crossed paths with him a couple of times, but didn't get actually a lot of time to talk. So it was cool to connect and see him But it's cool how fitness can bring people together, and coaching, and, after so many years in such a sport, or, the fitness realm, like paths will cross again, or you'll reconnect. It's really rad.
Yeah. I didn't really know anything about him until I got down to the kettlebell course, and he did such an awesome job for that, just teaching and passing along so much knowledge and information and practical information. But then he also did his kettlebell juggling, which, if you haven't seen that, you got to go.
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it though.
You got to look at the video. Of course, it's going to be more impressive in person, but like, he just does these crazy things where like, you're like, whoa, dude, watch your feet. But he does it really well. It's really cool to see. Anyways, going back to Dave Castro. So I reached out to him, and we started talking, and I did my L1, the kettlebell. And then he actually sent out I did my L1 at CrossFit Mayhem. Which was awesome. Yeah. I think they moved locations now. I think it was the second location that I went to, which was really nice, but then they moved to some massive thing.
Yeah, it's huge. I was just there too. We swung by. It's so large, like so much space to do everything. But it's cool because I think it gives the opportunity for a lot of things to happen there. Seminars, classes. I did a huge class there with the Power Monkey Camp last week. And so that was pretty cool. Just to see the space that it had. It was very well laid out. We'll say that.
Is it still in Cookeville?
Yeah, still in Cookeville. Yeah.
Nice. I got probably the best maple bacon donut I've ever had in Cookeville.
Oh, is that the little donut shop? I always forget the name, but I went there when I was training for the Invitational back in 2015, but then also the Rogue Team Series workouts. We went down to Cookeville and we did training there with Rich, and we went and got donuts. Oh, amazing donut. And I love donuts. I'm all about donuts. Yeah,
for sure. And it was I was in like a few year craze on donuts, where every time I would drive to an event, I would find a local donut shop in the like town or passing through or whatever. And so I was primed and ready to critique these, and I thought they were awesome. I don't remember the name of the shop, but it was really good. Yeah.
I want to say like Bo's Diner or something like that.
Yeah. Like some unassuming place you wouldn't think, but those are usually the best, right?
100% agreed.
So then Dave, that was one of my first years doing long drive. So he sent out like a little film crew with Mike Koslap. I don't know if you know him. I hope I'm saying it right. Koslap, who did an awesome job and made a really cool video about me using CrossFit and long drive. And that was really fun. And then, like I was saying, I think maybe it was early 2019 or middle of 2019, Dave reached out and said that you're looking into long drive and connected us there. So how did that process start? I mean,
so getting to long drive, I want to say it was like end of 2018. We were watching, Alex and I were watching it on ESPN. Trying to remember when it was. It was in the afternoon. It was in my old apartment. So I want to say end of 2018. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, this is pretty sweet. I kind of like it. I was like, and I golfed for 10 years. I started when I was 8, played till I was 18, and I would dabble in it after that. When I'd come home from college or university, I'd play with friends or I'd go to the range and hit. It was just hard to kind of find time or go play. I wanted to actually go and be on the golf team in Hawaii, but when I got out there wasn't a golf team. So we tried to start one. There was one other player, a guy, and then myself trying to actually start it, but it didn't work out because of Title IX. You had to have equal number of sports, female to male. And so it just didn't come to fruition. And so when I saw it, I was like, man, this is kind of cool. I was like, I don't only have to really worry about like one club, one swing. You don't have to worry about putting, shipping, sand, long irons, short irons. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, so I started kind of look into it and see the process. And for me, I just found it really intriguing because I'm always about challenging myself and trying something new and different. But the one thing that I found was from all the CrossFit and from all the strength that I have, my limited range of motion was one of the things that I found kind of right from the beginning, like being able to rotate and like seeing videos of how far the women get their shoulders back, or even guys. I'm like, I can't even get that rotation. So I found that kind of like the one thing, like, all right, I need to work on my upper body mobility. But I was like, well, that'll come. Like, I just want to start. And so I think I just started going to the driving range, hitting, smashing balls, but it's kind of hard to tell unless you have some feedback with your inside. So I want to say it was March of 2019. That was the first one I signed up for, and it was in Yucca Valley. And I was like, oh, cool. Sign up for the Open. Perfect. So I signed up, not knowing that the Open was men's division or men's division or whatever. Because I was thinking Open, I'm thinking like CrossFit, like, oh, the Open, like open to everybody. That's what I thought. So I sign up and I get there, and I'm excited. I'm nervous because it's the first one. And of course, everything in practice usually goes smooth, but then you go up to the time to hit and you're like, everything, shit hits the fan. Pardon my language. But I got there and I went to check in and I was like, man, there's like no women here. I'm like, there's women around, but I think a lot of them were wives or girlfriends of people. Maybe they were golfers, but they weren't competing. And I asked them, I was like, hey, so there a women division? They're like, no, it's just the men. I was like, oh, is there any other women competing? They're like, no, there were two other women, but then they found out it was just guys were hitting, so they left. I was like, damn. So that was my first kind of experience. So I just went up and like hit with the guys and it was super cool. I think I hit a PR. I think it was like 329.
Nice.
But out of all 8 balls, it was only 1 on the grid.
Oh.
So like the nerves and my adrenaline, I was like, man, I haven't felt this in a long time because I competed within CrossFit. I knew what it felt like, but long term, I didn't really know. I'm like, I'll be fine. I feel good. Then literally this buzzard. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to swing my golf club. Like I can't even hit the ball right now. I'm like shooting them left, right, and center. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. And I think for me, it's like challenging myself, wanting to hit the ball far, obviously on the grid, but it was a whole completely different realm. Because before my golf and even like the snatch, I feel like the golf and snatch and even clean, the first 2 swings or first 2 pulls of the clean and snatch are parallel to golf where it's like, 1, 2, even though it's back and down, that speed coming down for me, I felt like was a lot more prevalent or a lot more aggressive in long drive, where before I was just like, do. So learning how to change my swing and, watching videos and analyzing how the men and women hit, it's like, man, there's a lot of things I need to work on. So it was a great experience. Got to compete through 2019 and just learning more about myself. I'm like, all right, well, I definitely need to spend more time. And it was hard because, still kind of competing in the CrossFit realm, doing team competition that year. And then a little bit of Rogue Invitational as an individual that like May, but then also like doing my business and traveling for that and doing wine tours. Like I didn't spend enough time, I feel like, to, dedicate to that, but it was something I was interested in. I absolutely loved the experience, met some awesome ladies, got to travel around and hit lots of places. And obviously 2020 came around, wasn't able to do as much there because everything got canceled and pushed back. And then time constraints didn't make it possible because I think it was like the end of the year, like the championships was doable, but it didn't work for my schedule. And then coming back, I want to say in 2021, doing a little bit more there was cool. But I felt, all right, and I think it's tough because as an athlete and competitor, I'm like, I want to do good. I just want to go and show up and hit balls. I want to like do really well. But I wasn't putting the time and energy to go to the club or practice more, do training or analyzing my sport or analyzing my swing. And so I think that's where I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna put this on pause or on hold for a little bit, which is tough because like I want to do everything, but being realistic with time and resources and financials, like, all right, if all my money is going here, how do I allocate extra resources there? And I know there's a lot of changes, and you probably know more of the details. A lot of changes within, the Golf Channel having World Long Drive and then pivoting and changing, wanting to sell it. So I just went on a really long tangent there, but I absolutely loved it. And I'm glad that David connected us because for me, it's, you open that door, you open like a chapter in your life where like, wow, there's a lot more to learn about. And for me, I'd never heard about it, even though it'd been around since like 2007, 8, correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably before that, I know. Well, it was different. There's been different ownerships and different ways of running and stuff, but it goes back a long time. I think the Golf Channel bought it in 2015 though. Okay. Which is when I first got started.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of
like just how long you've been doing it and how you got involved with it.
So I played like high school golf, college golf, and I always hit it far. And then in 2015, when the new ownership of the Golf Channel picked it up, the qualification process was different. It was almost like skipping the first stage and you can go straight there and go through like a last chance qualifier essentially. And so I was like, well, hey, I mean, I might as well try it. I've never thought of doing it before. And to be honest, some of my first like reservations with trying it is because I thought it was going to negatively impact my tournament golf game, which was very far from the truth. And in reality, that's one of the things that I want people who listen to the podcast to kind of, learn more about is because Bryson, who's one of the top ranked PGA guys, has seen such value in adding distance to his game because it's going to help him. And so that was like one of my first, trepidations there, but I got into it, I tried it, I did pretty well. And I've just kind of kept going because it was like not immediate, but it was like quicker success than trying to go through like a PGA qualifying event and stuff. I had better success with long drives. So kept going there. But so recently I went down, I was in North Carolina and I did some tests at Par for Success. It's a golf gym down there.
Nice.
And I found, or they told me, and I saw the results very clearly for myself, that I move heavy weights well. And it makes sense because I've been doing a lot of strength, strongman, powerlifting, whatever it is, conjugate stuff. Actually, Westside, I was training with Westside for quite a while. Love those guys. But I don't move lightweight as well. So like we would throw a light medicine ball and a heavy, medium and heavy, and the lightweight, I wouldn't do that. Well, we did a couple other similar tests to confirm it. And so then they've helped me, Par for Success, help me kind of change some of my training and get it more specialized. But my point in saying is that I've seen a lot of people who have great fitness, great strength, and it's like they're trying to muscle the golf club and they're not using their muscle to its fullest potential to get that like whip at the end, Yeah. So it's
interesting. I could totally see that. Or like when I conceptualize it.
It's a learning curve for sure, because like you've got like your fitness is so high relative to like an average golfer or even an average long driver that like you should be able to maximize that and be incredible. And I feel like my fitness is high enough where, again, like I should be doing like swinging faster than I usually do. But as I put more effort into it, like more, like if you're going to do a heavy snatch or deadlift or whatever it is, like you put more force into it, you more, muscle recruitment, all of that, it doesn't necessarily carry over, where sometimes like if I just feel like it's an easy swing, those are the fastest. And it's so weird. It's so confusing sometimes because golf can be really counterintuitive.
I agree. And it's when I did some training inside, and I noticed when I was able to see the numbers and, the speed and obviously trajectory of where the ball will be going is interesting. Sometimes when I try to like, all right, I'm going to really hammer this one. And it's like, I come up too early, or I'm like too far behind the ball, or my hips are too far open, or I'm not open enough. And it's like, man, like you said, it's kind of counterintuitive. And so I learned a lot about timing. And of course, golf is, and I think the 10 years of playing golf when I was younger helped me with my mental mind game, because you have a crappy shot. You're like, all right, well, I can't throw it away because I have 17 more holes I need to go do. But it was definitely learning, to be a little more aggressive, but also watching different people and analyzing people's swings and like, getting that angle, like having more of a C in my torso. So I have my shoulder more upright so I can get more angle on that club so I can get a little higher loft. But then it depends on the situation, because I know when we played at Mesquite, like the wind was, coming straight at us. And I'm like, I don't necessarily need more loft. I don't necessarily need to be higher in the air because now the wind's going to take it. So I need to have more lower loft angle, but have it more drive forward. But for me, it was interesting because I was like, man, like what I did training, as 8 to 18 was a lot different than what I'm learning now. But I learned a lot more. I'm like, man, this is a ditch. You can keep digging to find more stuff and like learn about more, more about your body and more about your training. And it was just interesting because I think, just like you said, iterating what we said in the beginning, like the more you think you're going to hammer it, that necessarily isn't the case. The more relaxed or loose you are, or at least I felt, was I was able to actually release the grip of the club, let the club swing over versus trying to death grip it and like keep that face open.
Yeah.
And when I did it, it's like, hallelujah, I just need to do that every single time I hit,
Yeah. But then like the crux of it becomes, how do I take that same intensity and effort level and use all the strength and everything I have, but have it carry over as effectively? Because let's say you're swinging at like 75%, and that's where you get that real whip and that pop. Is there a way that you can then swing at 100%, but still have the same relative pop and everything that comes through? And that's probably where, there are certain people who are really fast. And I think most of them, at least the guys, and I don't, mean to name particular names or anything, but they kind of are maximizing that, like where their body is working hard. And maybe their gym numbers wouldn't be that great or whatever, but they're swinging hard and they have that whip and that release, the speed that comes in.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I remember when I think even the first competition, the one in Yucca Valley, I was watching some of the swings and I was like, man, these are like baseball swings. Like they were completely what I thought I was thinking, like those memes, right? What you think you're going to get, what you actually get, right? I'm thinking how I'm going to see people swing. So for me, it's like I'm a very visual learner, so I can see people move. That might help me use my body in space. So like, hey, like I see a lot of people like they dip down to like a quarter squat and then like almost kind of box jump or, kind of a squat jump away from the floor. And they have so much power and the club comes all the way around to like behind their right shoulder on the return. And I was like, dang, that's not what I envisioned but that makes sense. I'm like, if I'm trying to generate more power, more force, what's the best way to do it? Not a nice and easy tempo, but something where I can push against, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to jump on a box, like a box jump, I'm usually going to close on my hips, bend at my knees slightly, swing my arms back, pop my hips, jump on top of the box. So you think that same concept applies to here. Like, all right, I'm just going to bend my knees and I'm going to push into the earth to generate more drive and more power. But it's interesting. I feel like I could definitely spend so much more time, refining my swing, refining my movement pattern to be better and to compete again. It's just, again, like picking and choosing where I'm putting my time in the day and like what I want to do. But I've loved it. And I always watch it. And it's like, I have that feeling of FOMO, like watching people, like some of the girls I follow. I'm like, ooh, like, oh, that looks like a nice shot. Ooh, that's a good swing. And of course, when like we go to Top Golf or places where I'm like, oh, I really want to go play, that again, it's like I have to remember like all that rust that's accumulated. I have to slowly dust it off. I can't just like, oh, I'm just gonna hit it like I did last time.
Yeah. But let's talk about the mental side, like you just mentioned. So I haven't gotten, that high up in any other sport but golf and long drive. So I don't know, but it seems to me like because they are inherently slower paced to some extent, long drive less, but still slower. Is there more like, so when you're doing a CrossFit workout in the games and the heat of competition, is your mind active? Are you thinking things or are you just like pushing?
I think it kind of depends on the implement and like what you're doing. Like if it's a max lift versus like a longer workout or like a chipper style workout. And I think your mind's still going. I will kind of talk to myself in terms of whatever plan I have. Like, hey, like I'm doing so many reps here. Even though you have a judge, I'm still counting my reps and like moving methodically through the rep scheme because yes, they're counting, but I need to make sure that I'm accountable to my rep scheme and what I'm doing so that I can move on to the next implement. For like a heavy lift, for example, I'm just going to try to clear my head of most any thoughts and just think of like executing, or I'll close my eyes and envision me hitting that lift, because a lot of the envisioning of what you see or what you tell yourself will affect your body. And I think for me, talking myself through the workout, say, hey, like, 2 more reps, or you can do this. If I'm having to carry a heavy log for a mile back to a stadium, I'm just going to focus like one step of the other. If I'm going to switch it over to the other side, like cool, like keep my arm up, lean my head to the side, like keep breathing, just small little cues to tell myself to keep moving. I think another example is in 2018 when we had the marathon row. Like that's a long distance to row, and people are like, "Oh man, like this is gonna be horrible." And I'm thinking, you're already telling yourself it's gonna be horrible. What you say to yourself or what you say out loud is going to affect you mentally more than you even think. And so again, depending on the exercise and the workout we have or the event, talking to yourself through it is going to be huge. Positive little notes like, "Hey, I can do this," or one more step. I mean, on the marathon row, at one point I was like, oh, I only have like 12,000 meters left. Like, woohoo, like looking at the positive, even though 12,000 meters is a lot, I was trying to spin it around in my head. Like, all right, I'm already past the halfway mark. I only have 12,000 meters to go. I'm on the descent, And I think that on a longer style workout, that would mimic more of on a golf, if you're playing a round of 18 or 36, 72, whatever it is, you're like, cool, like I have one shot. Okay, the drive was great. I'm a little to the left, I'm right on the rough. I just need to have a nice like short iron shot to the middle of the green. Or, hey, there's sand in there. Like, I hope I don't go in the sand. Well, now you're thinking, don't go in the sand, your mind goes to that. And then you start to focus and look at it. Then guess what? You're in the sand. So I think just little things like that can affect your visualization of what you want versus, what you don't want. But if you're pulling to the don't, your mind doesn't understand that. Don't, it's like, oh, it's sand trap, sand. And like a workout, like don't miss the lift. For it's like, no, like, I'm going to make this lift. I visualize myself catching the clean, hitting the jerk, and then standing up.
So on a more technical lift, if you're snatching, cleaning, whatever it is, and you miss it on a missed rep, what are the thoughts? Are you thinking a technical thing? Is it an effort thing, a combination?
Kind of depends. Like I think one time in competition, we only had 2 attempts to snatch. I lifted the load. I missed it, I think behind me. And I said, I told myself, hey, it's okay. Like, I just need to punch up more into the bar. I was like, I have to make this lift. I will make this lift, punch up into the bar. And so by the time my time came back around, I think I threw like 2.5 or 5 back on there, hit the lift, and then stood up and I was like, thank God. But again, it just depends on the implement. If it's there's some implements or some events where like it's for time. So you're thinking grip it and go. And on those events, I'm just thinking like smooth as fast, or I think like set up position, or if there's certain regulations where like you have to step over the bar. So I'd say like drop the bar, jump over, drop the bar, jump over. And it just depends on if there's a speed element involved, I might not be thinking as quick. I'm going to rely more on my technique. If it's time where time's not really a worry, like you have 90 seconds or 30 seconds to lift, but I have, 5 minutes to rest because everyone's going, then I'm going to focus on more execution. Like, all right, knees out, keep the chest up, press up into the bar, catch the bar, press up into the sky. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on how the movement or how the event's planned. But just like the golf swing, like nice and easy. And sometimes the best thing to think, like, just relax and swing the club. Don't think of anything.
Yeah.
I know, at least when I would swing, if I'm thinking relax my hands, drop my shoulders, sit back in my midfoot, knees out, torque the body, it'd be like too many pieces.
Oh, way too many. Yeah. You can't do that.
Same thing the weightlifting, like don't worry about pushing your knees out, like knees out, chest up, like hook grip, like shoulders back. There's so many things that focusing on one thing is probably the best. So that's what I try to give myself, one thing to think about.
That's good advice. I feel like I do a similar thing with golf, but it's odd because like in tournament golf, for example, I think it's more of a stark contrast than in long drive. So in tournament golf, like you have, maybe 7 or 8 minutes where you're like walking to your next shot and you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm here. I've got, that's where the green I want to hit or whatever. And so you've got that super long period of time to think about anything you want and you can control and do all kinds of things. But then the actual swing where you can actually manipulate things is not even a second. Yeah. So you've got a million thoughts over 8 minutes, and then you've got to maybe pick like one swing thought that you're going to have or one target you're going to hit to or something like that. And it's not always the easiest. I'm always envious of players who look like they're, not to be disparaging, but they look like they're brain dead when they're out there. They're just not thinking and they're just hitting, they're just doing whatever. And that seems like a better way to go.
Like you're just going through the actions, just going through the movements. You're not really present.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a hard place to be. And I think we've both, I'm sure, been there, been in the zone, whatever you want to call it, flow state. And that's always the best, right?
Yeah, I think finding your groove can definitely help, especially longer events, whether it's focusing on your breathing, focusing on your mechanics. And I think I remember even golf, like I'd have random thoughts like, oh, like what power bar am I going to eat? Like, am I going to eat the Tiger's milk bar, or am I going to eat like the apple crisp one or whatever? And I think sometimes random stuff like that pops up that's not relative to what you're doing can be a good distractor. But I mean, I think in the marathon row, like, all right, cool. Like I was on there for 3 hours and 42 seconds. Like what else I'm going to think about? I thought about so many things, but I try to bring myself back to center. Like, oh, people in the stands, like wave to people in the stands, like smile. I'll feel better if I smile, breathe, focus on my rep stroke, have a sip of water, have a goo. And I think sometimes having a thought that pulls you away from your immediate scenario can help relax that. It disconnects you. It also pulls you out of the scenario. So then you come back, you're like, all right, cool. And also perspective if I wasn't having, I remember I reflect back a lot on like days where I had like shitty, courses or shitty holes. I'm like, all right, cool. Like bigger picture. Like, am I going to remember this? Am I going to get upset and like frustrated about like, what's this going to mean in a week? What's this going to mean in a year? And I think it's also reflective to workouts. Like also the bigger picture, it's like, yes, this is important and it's relative to a certain point, but at the same time, like what's the bigger picture? Like things could be way worse. I could, instead of worrying about my golf shot or my time in this workout, I could be worrying about, if I'm going to have food on the table next meal. Am I going to have shelter over my house? Do I have to worry about, someone attacking me? Like not to like go negative, but it's perspective. Like things could be so much worse. Things could be so much better, but it's relative to your environment. And I sometimes think pulling myself out, even do like a grueling, gnarly workout, this too shall pass. Like whatever stress I'm going through, whatever hard point I'm going through, this will pass. This pain is temporary, whatever I'm feeling, it will eventually go away. And it kind of checks me myself. So I'm not like, oh my God, life's terrible. The workout's so bad. It's so hard, Yeah. It's perspective for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mental cue, like you mentioned, different cues and stuff like that is huge for golf and lifting. For lifting, have you ever read the book? I think it's called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Mm-hmm. It's this cool, like it's a tiny little book. It was probably written back in the 70s or something. It's like a Zen kind of thing. You should check it out. It was referred to me by the guys at Westside, like Louis Simmons loved this quote. And it was this Jonathan Livingston. He was a seagull. It's literally a story about seagulls. And like, they're supposed to fly a certain way. And, they're like this herd mentality, but he loved speed. He loved going fast. And so he got, I think, kicked out of the community at one point because he just loved, like, he'd go up and dive bomb down like other birds would do, but seagulls apparently shouldn't do. It's a really cute book. And then, so anyways, like at the very end of the book, he kind of reaches like the Zen state when an older seagull says to him, perfect speed is being there. So if it's the lift, like I'll visualize myself if I'm doing like a bench press and I'm trying to go fast for like a speed workout. I'm not thinking about exploding in the movement. I'm thinking about already being in the locked out position. And that's helped for sure. It's, those little mental, fun little things.
That's great. I think it's huge because like you said, you're visualizing, you're already there. Like you're literally in that moment. And I think that's easy. It's not an easy task for all the people because you think of, what we're constantly doing just in life and society, like the next thing, the next goal. Cool. I just got that. The next thing. It's like, man, just be here. But that's really awesome. I'll have to check out that book.
Yeah, it's a fun little book. I only had it on an ebook actually because I couldn't find it, but it was really short, but it's a nice one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love stuff like that.
All right. So let's hear about your wine company. Why did you choose to get into that?
A lot of people have asked me that, and I really love the process. It comes down to, the time you spend on the farm, harvesting the grapes, crushing them, stemming them, pulling the wheelbarrows to the sand. I love being outdoors, obviously, but I also love the process because that's where we spend so much time. And I think seeing that and doing that, it mirrored a lot of things in life at that time, specifically, competition and being in the gym 6 to 8 hours a day for training for a competition. And that just pulled me in. And I thought, all right, well, if I can kind of bottle this up, no pun intended, but I can bottle the fitness and bottle the wine up and like showcase people these two passions, hopefully can inspire people to go after their goals. And, doing it for like kind of fun home production, meaning I could make wine at home. I started with my farm in Utah, planted grapes in 2011 and started in 2012 and would harvest for a number of years. My mom and sister would come down. My dad was there and I just loved the process. I would, if I could spend all day out, like doing agricultural work, I love it. And I would love to do that because I find it very rewarding to put that work in and that time in. And, at the end of the day, you feel accomplished. Like you look down the row of the vines, you're like, man, like all these vines are gone or all these grapes are gone because of the work I put in. When you drink a bottle and you finally open it up, like all that time and that blood, sweat, and tears is condensed in that one bottle and you get to open it up and share with people. So the process is what I kind of really fell in love with. And like with alcohol, like there's a lot of legalities and red tape. And so finagling that, figuring out the best way to do that, there was kind of a couple different options. But the best route was to go to California, get licensing there. And in that process, I could still compete, still do what I needed to do. Because I started the first harvest of taking those grapes to California, excuse me, in 2016. So I was still competing at the time, starting a small business, and then still trying to compete. It's doable, I'll say. It's not ideal because it's hard to be the best in both. Trying to compete and be on the podium and qualify for the games and also start a new business, launch it, get everything ready to launch. It was difficult, but I was able to manage it. I was able to do it. Got the license in 2017, a week before regionals, competed at regionals 2017, was able to literally switch hats right after the competition was done. I was like, cool, what do I need to bottle? Get corks, capsules, labels, bottling, get all that set up and then launch it and get it set up for the games to distribute. So I launched in 2017 at the CrossFit Games while competing, did a wine event, literally right after one of the events. Again, not ideal for people like, hey, should I do both? I would not encourage you, but not to shun anyone away from their goals. It is doable. But for me, like I said, I kind of went on a long tangent, but to be able to showcase wine and what the process is, not just the wine itself, but the process behind winemaking and what it means to me to have that parallel fitness and have that parallel so many things in life, like career or family. We spend so much time in that process and journey that I felt like it was the perfect pairing to put those two together and share with people and say, hey, like this has been my life. This is my journey. If you're on a similar path towards your goals, like you can do it. There are struggles and there are stipulations, but it will be worth it in the long run.
Wow. How much input do you have on what the end product is? So like, do you put them in certain kinds of wood casks or like what's all involved with that? Yeah.
So usually once the grapes are crushed or once they're picked, harvested, then we would crush them. And then we put them usually in neutral barrels, the oak barrels.
Have you ever done the foot crushing?
No, I have not. People are like, no? Oh my God, can I come crush with your feet? I'm like, maybe do that for like the fun, but I wouldn't drink that wine.
Yeah, okay.
But people have done it. I mean, it'd be fun to do just to say you've done it. Anytime someone asks me that, I always think of the old Disney movie where like they're crushing on the grape. So random. But yeah, so I think, again, like,
sorry, you were saying a certain kind of cask.
No. Oh no. So it's usually in neutral, oak barrels, but usually neutral. There are some stainless steel barrels that I've done. But there's not everything is your control. You don't have to use, but usually using yeast to start the fermentation process is great. There is some wild yeast, or you can do wild yeast fermentation. But the problem with that is it could be a 50-50 of it being really good or not being really good. And then you lose that production. So I'm involved as much as possible, especially in the beginning. As the years have gone on, it's hard to be involved in the farm and doing the harvest and all that, and also try to promote and do sales and advertising and social media.
Yeah.
So I've had to peel myself away. I'd much rather prefer to do the agricultural aspect and the farm work, just because I enjoy that a lot more. Not that I don't love doing the sales, the marketing, advertising, but it's very hard. Wines, I mean, alcohol period saturated, but the wine industry is very saturated with people and brands and companies. And as a small company with a small budget, it's hard to compete sometimes against the larger companies. But for me, I've been very advantageous of connecting with the community. I've traveled and done yoga and wine nights, connecting people, sharing my story, sharing my messages, sharing the wines with them, having people taste, because a lot of people are hesitant, and I want to break that barrier. I want to show people that, hey, like, you don't have to know a lot about wine to drink wine. The only way you're going to really know more is to drink more. But I do preach like moderation and earning your grapes and balance. It's all about tasting and experimenting, and just like anyone would try different foods, like try different wines, see what you like. But my whole message is, work hard, wind down, enjoy the process. Try different wines, see what you like. And if you don't drink, that's fine. You could be eating bonbons on the couch, hanging out with your kids. But for me, it's more about the mentality of life and where we spend it. I think having personal experiences where, not every day is guaranteed. Not every week is guaranteed. Things can change at the drop of a hat. And I think for myself, it's more about enjoying the most of every single day with those around me, sharing a bottle of wine, sharing a couple glasses with friends, and creating some sort of memorable experience. Because at the end of the day, at the end of our life, our legacy, it's those memories that we'll remember.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. So how many varieties do you have?
So we have three different wines. We had two others. One was moderation. We sold out of that. Another one was Goes In, which was just Zinfandel. But the three most popular have been the Goat. The Goat's been the most popular. That is greatest of all time. It's a red blend of Petit Syrah, and Grenache. It's similar to a Cabernet, where it's full-bodied, fruit-forward, has a very medium tannins, but medium creamy texture on the palate. So people that love Cabs or Syrah love that wine. And then another one is called Cheerston. That is a Tempranillo, or 2017 is a Tempranillo and Grenache blend, similar to a Rioja blend. That one's actually named after my sister, and we dedicated that one to her. It has a painting of one of her paintings as the label. And the third one's called La Vigneron, which is winemaker in French. It's a blend of Zinfandel and Carniena. So it's a lighter wine, has a little bit of like tart apple and cherry flavors. I actually will chill that one. I'll keep them in the wine fridge, but open that one chilled. And as it warms up, the flavors and the aromas come out a little bit more. But our biggest thing was to create unique labels with a story. So when people buy the wine, they're not just buying a wine, but they're buying a message or a story that's with it. And it's also part of a community. So it's been really cool to share them with everyone. But yeah, 3 different wines, all red blends. I'd like to actually work on bringing out a white, hopefully later this year. If not the end of this year, then early next year.
You said a lot of words that I don't know, but they sound really good though.
They're delicious.
Yeah. I like the story component too. It's more than just, whatever wine. You actually get to learn about it and appreciate that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's important because I've done a lot of, we'll say like Q&A with a lot of people, and I've asked people, how do you base your decision on what wine you buy? And about 50% of people say, hey, I buy it based off the label, which is interesting because I think as the wine drinker changes in terms of the demographic, a lot more younger people are trying to get into wine. They want to learn about it. And, they're looking for story, they're looking for community, they're looking for connection. They want something that they can kind of resonate with. And for myself, it's like, I want to be able to share a story with people. And to do that, sometimes it's based off the label. Like this label can tell a story that it can share a moment of time with people. Yeah,
for sure. Did you know all of that stuff, about wine before you got into it, or was it a quick
learning experience for sure? And there's still a lot that I don't know, but I've learned a lot. Obviously asking questions, working with people. It's hard to, like I said, it's hard to do both right now. So it's myself and another female winemaker that we're working with in terms of doing the blending. During the pandemic, when everything was closed, we had to she would send me samples and I would blend. I had like a little measuring cup, like trying to figure out the blend and the percentages. It's definitely a little bit of chemistry, but for me, I found it very unique because I'm teaching myself, I'm educating myself, like, how much does this wine taste with this wine, or, what percentage do I use? And it's still a learning experience. But again, just kind of similar to when I first started CrossFit, I'm like, if I just say, hey, I don't know enough, I'm not going to start. I'm going to wait till I know enough. It could be, 5, 10, 15 years before I start. I'm like, well, let me just throw myself into the fire and try it and see what happens, and, learn as I go, and, reference people and ask questions and be like a sponge and absorb as much information as I can.
Yeah. Well, we are running out of time here again. So first of all, where can people find the wine?
So they can go to my website, thegoatwine.com. And I have Cheerson and Levin, you're on there. We sold out of GOAT on there. We have GOAT in a couple local shops in Vegas and in Montana and Colorado, but we'll be working on the next production of the GOAT. But the other 2 varietals are on there as well. Nice.
And you're very active on social media. So what are your tags and everything?
Very active for sure. For sure. So my Instagram handle is 321GO, GAUX. And then I also have the GOAT Wine. And then I have one that does the fitness and the wine, Celeste by MA as well. So, but I'm very active on there. Very cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this, sitting down, giving me your time. I appreciate you having me on, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you. I hope to see you out at a long drive competition soon. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll be in Mesquite in, I should know the dates because this is the PLDA podcast. I should really know the dates. End of May? Well, yeah, but then the world championship, the men's. Okay, so this is a cool year because the women's championship is going to be in Japan. I saw that. We had a group thread talking about that. Yeah. Okay, and then the men's championship will be back in Mesquite in I think it's the beginning of October. Okay. Well, if I'm around, I'll definitely have to come out there and check it out. Awesome. That's like what, an hour and a half? It's from like, like an hour and a half away. So not that far. It's like a little bit north. It's on the way to Utah. So perfect. Nice. It's not that far at all. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Margaux. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Have a good one. Take care.